Welcome everybody to Vibrationally Speaking with Leena Z. So this podcast is about life, death, and life after death. And it's pretty much kind of started from my own personal journey, my own life experience. I had a near-death experience, and that journey has brought me to some amazing places and in front of some amazing people with some amazing conversations. And here we are, continuing on that. So thank you for being here. Today I have Eric Bennett as my guest. Now, I recently met Eric last week from a podcast that he does called Round Trip Death. And he was kind enough to have me as a guest. And we had, I thought, an incredible time, an incredible conversation. And I wanted to continue that, but have him as my guest. So with that,
the tables have turned.
Yes, they have.
I'm not used to this.
Say hello, Eric, and introduce yourself, please, as I'm still getting to know you.
Yeah, Eric Bennett here, host of Round Trip Death. I don't know. What do you want to know?
Oh my God. I have questions for you. I want to know a lot.
I'm happy to jump in. I can tell you about me. I can tell you about you, wherever you want to go.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Let's just have fun.
Okay. So I want to know about you.
Okay.
We already talked about me, remember? So we could still share and I could still talk, but I want to know about you. I want to know about what got you to do a podcast about near-death experiences? What's the story behind that? Who was Eric? And, how it's affected you and changed you. And so you could start from wherever you want to share who you were, why you started.
Okay. Thank you, because that was a lot of questions all at once. So I'll start with
that as you were saying that, I was like, oh my God, I put 25 questions on the table for him. But
so I think the first thing that sparked my interest in this topic was the fact that I had heard growing up about my uncle who passed away when he was 14 years old. So long before I was born, he passed away. And as my mother tells this story, when he was very close to death, he said a few things. He said, I hear children laughing. And then he said, I can see children playing, and a few other things like that very shortly before he passed away. And I've grown up being a believer in God and in an afterlife and a world of spirits that we came from and that we will be going to. But even with that, and with everything that I've studied in Scripture, there is so much that we don't know about this place, which I'll just call the spirit world for now. You can call it heaven or whatever we want to call it. I don't care. There's so much that we don't know about it and what goes on there on a minute by minute or day by day basis, even though there aren't really days there. So that pricked a lot of my interest. And then having now interviewed a couple hundred people, and we have, I think, about 140 episodes out at this point.
Wow.
I never get tired of it. I never get bored with it. I love hearing different people's stories. They're all different. No two NDEs are the same. There are some commonalities. There are some things that are different. And there's always something that we can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I have so much love, respect, and admiration for you and anybody who has the interest, who creates a platform for us experiencers to come and share and talk about it, because you have questions, and not that we have answers, but we have stories, we have experience to share. And I think it's like a perfect dance to see between the two worlds, I guess, when you were saying, there's so much that we don't know, and it's kind of like there's a veil, and you can see it when we interact with one another from that side to this side. So the podcast and what we do is pretty pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, and I like the idea of having a forum here
Yes, absolutely.
because at least on our podcast, we're not trying to preach any particular religion. It's very non-denominational. It's very non-judgmental. We just want to hear what happened to you and what happened to this person and what happened to this other person. And then people can draw their own conclusions. They can learn what they need to learn on that particular day.
Mhm.
And hopefully, we're getting out there a message of hope. You know,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
world right now is a tough place. There's a lot of bad news every single day. And we all need some hope. Hope that there is something better beyond the grave.
I completely agree with you, Eric. And like the way I say it or see it is there's just as much good as there is negative, you know, and, we need to also put some love and attention and conversation into the good also to illuminate that and to bring that up and to put that in front of people's minds and create some like sunshine from that, right? So I love where we're going to this, and I have some questions for you that kind of help, get an understanding of that. And what I want to know is, your passion was, something that started from childhood that put like a curiosity, a seed in you. But how has it affected you? You said you've done like 140 episodes. What started you? How has it? How have you evolved with it?
Okay. I wouldn't say that it has changed my beliefs,
Mhm.
um, my religious and spiritual beliefs that are mine and are personal to me, but it has added some. It has reminded me that God is all about love, period.
Yeah.
Okay. He, and I hope you don't mind the term he, doesn't, we're not talking, we're not trying to preach gender here, but he is all about love. And if we believe that we are his children in some shape or form or creations of his, then it's good for us to realize that everything he's doing for us is out of love. Now, you and I both have children.
Yes.
Okay. You have how many? Three?
3.
Three. I have five. And
Wow.
I have grandchildren too. So I'm pretty old. But it's one thing to talk about love, and it's another thing to think through, okay, as a parent, a loving parent of a child, what things do we do for them out of love?
Mm.
Sometimes those things are just, let me give you a hug and help you feel some sympathy and just feel this outpouring of love. Other times, there's only way that our children can learn a tough lesson if they have to go through it themselves, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And we also tell them, hey, to stay safe and to stay happy in this life, there are certain things that if you follow, you'll do better with.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
religion calls those commandments.
Uh-huh.
Again, it's all out of love.
Absolutely.
And one of the very favorite things that I enjoy doing on my podcast is people who have felt that love during their NDE. Sorry, I'm doing a love fest here with using the word love too much, but
Okay.
I really enjoy asking them to try to explain what it felt like
Yeah.
because it's so hard to explain. Because that feeling of God's love is more than just, oh, somebody did something nice for me today, or somebody
Well,
gave me a
Eric,
hug
I'm
today.
feeling it right now. I don't know, but I'm like, yeah. I just wanted to share. I do know exactly what you mean. Um, Tapping into that love. It's an energy that goes past us, right?
And through us.
Yeah. And yeah, through time and space.
And it's all encompassing. And that is the main commonality between all of the NDEs. Now, there are some people that have distressing, what we call distressing NDEs, where it's more of a hell type experience. Most, but not all of those end up in a good place, right? Where they're feeling God's love after the really rough part. But in general, the feeling of love is the big takeaway from all of it. And it's the big positive feeling out there. It's the big, this is why I should have hope in the future, because when I get to the other side, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. What have you found as far as like all the people who share, what has been their consisting as when and why they share their stories?
So we're talking about these individuals now.
Yeah.
I think people share for different reasons. There are some people that come back from their experience having actually been told, you need to now share this with other people. It's almost like your mission in life.
Mhm.
And a lot of people do that through writing books. There are a lot of books on this topic, as you know.
Plenty.
And other people are coming to me or to others, to an IONS group or others, because it's very therapeutic to talk about it. So most people that have a near-death experience, immediately after, they're sometimes they don't remember all of it. Usually they're trying to process it. What just happened to me?
Oh, yeah.
They may not even know there's a term for it,
Mhm.
right? Especially if this was 50 years ago. And so it really helps to be able to find people that understand, come from kind of a common place, and you can be able to talk about it. Helps you process what you've been through to be able to discuss
Yes,
with others about it.
absolutely.
And I feel very privileged with some people who have come to me and never talked about it before. And they're so afraid to talk about it. And they have such a difficult time expressing it. And they're wiping tears. And
Goodness.
and then they're also realizing, oh, wait a minute, you know, this guy's not judging me. He's not saying I'm crazy. He's not saying I believe this part and not this other part. And it can be very freeing. And we usually talk after the interview's over. And some people are like, oh my gosh, I feel like this huge weight is off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Because I've finally been able to express that. Also, that some people come to listen just totally out of curiosity.
Yes.
Others come to listen because maybe they've lost a loved one recently and grieving is tough and
It,
they don't know how to get through this and they're looking for some hope.
yes.
Gee, my child or my parent just passed away and I don't know if I'll ever see them again or if they're okay.
Yes.
And it's nice when you can have 100 different people in a row tell you, yes, I know they're okay because I went there and I was much better than okay. It was great.
Absolutely. And, jumping back in, what I was going to say is part of, when I share and when I talk about my experience, it was difficult at first because I had to, like you said, understand what happened to me, understand the language and find that, not being alone and that there's others. So once I was able to speak, even when I don't speak, but just the understanding of my own experience, like you say, when I go out, it is so amazing. People do come up and they're like, this is what happened to me. Oh my God, I remember. And it's almost like everybody I meet either has a story of something that has happened to them or has happened something that has happened to somebody that they know. It's almost like everybody is somehow connected to somebody who's had an experience. I mean, that's has been my personal experience with it, is that the more I share, the more I, you know, understand and feel into my experience. and the more people are able to feel that resonance and that comfort and that remembrance of their own experience and their own and it's not always near-death experiences, you know. A lot of times people talk about having an experience that is known as a spiritually transformative experience that affects them. Have you come across any of that you found interesting?
Of the STEs?
Spiritually transformative
Oh
experience.
yeah. Yeah, quite a few. Um, we keep a really tight niche on our show, so it's primarily NDEs,
Mm-hmm.
but we also talk about STEs and OBEs and shared death experience
Yeah.
and everything else from time to time. And in our bonus episodes, sometimes we do more than one a week, and the second one in the week will be a bonus, and we'll talk about some of these other things too. But yes, a spiritually transformative experience can be just as powerful as a what we classify as a near-death experience, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's good to have the conversation of it, you know, and I like that even though you talk about, you know, primarily near death experiences, but I think that also, at least in my case, it kind of leaves that open portal, open door for other experiences to come to life and to surface.
Yeah, they're a little bit more difficult to quantify
Yeah.
because gee, you were fine, you were asleep. Was this just a dream? If that doesn't mean it can't be a spiritually transformative experience. Did it happen in the shower someplace else? It's a little harder to quantify it as to what exactly it was that happened to you because we feel like we have to define everything, right? And put a label on everything, which is a little unfortunate. But the nice thing is we're allowing all of these things to come together. It's not just NDEs.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I I love the fact that the NDEs has a, I want to say, scientific and medical validation most of the time. So that really takes that whole thing of, oh, was it just a dream? It's just your imagination. It's just you hallucinating, or, you know, drugs or whatever the
Mhm.
case may be, right? So yeah, no, I think NDEs are very, very important to be like the umbrella of it.
All encompassing.
Yeah,
Well, and 50 plus years ago, that scientific quantification that you're talking about, that wasn't even happening with NDEs back then.
I know.
Okay. That's happened in this short of a period. Maybe over the next few years, the same kind of credibility will be given to these other experiences too.
I could see that. I could see that. And I think, I don't know, for me, I think the more we open our consciousness, I think the more awareness we have and curiosity we have, I think we are all, you know, open to that same connection with source is the way I see it being, even though we call it a spiritually transformative experience. From my own personal experience, you know, those just happens to be those perfect little moments of alignment where I connect, you know, and have those moments. And I think we all do. And I think because we don't give it enough credit or validation, and we kind of chuck it off as, oh, I was just thinking, oh, it was just a dream, that we don't give it its credit or space, right?
Yeah. And to me, the real question is see, we're calling it a transformative experience. How did it transform you? Did it make you a better person? Did it make you a more enlightened person? Did it make you a more empathetic person? How did it transform you?
That's a very, very interesting question. Now we're having a fun conversation because, you know, for me personally, I can only share my personal experiences with why are we turning steering around, and now I'm having experience tell you about my experience. But um I always had visions and downloads, and I thought they were dreams, but after a while, and I started to look back and I think, okay, why is it that I can only remember these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dreams over the course of 30 years? 30 years, I can look back right now and I can probably give you every detail about 5 dreams. And to answer the question, like, how does it affect you? I don't know. I've been pretty sensitive, pretty empathic, pretty compassionate person, sometimes to my own detriment, maybe, not knowing the lines. I think it does open you to that,
Mhm.
to have experiences and to, you know, think, well, what if it's more than just a dream? Because a lot of times those experiences are positive, right?
Well, what if it was only a dream, but it still was a spiritually transformative experience? What if it was only a dream, but it completely changed you?
Well,
That's worth something too.
but here's the thing though. That's the question I had. That's the question I had. What if it's just a dream? It's just a dream. Well, so there's this thing like I ask the universe questions and I get answers. And the answers that I got back was from somebody else in another text, and I'm not really sure who or what, so I can't quote. But what I got back was, if you can remember your dream many, many years back in great detail, it's really not a dream. Even though, because, you know, I believe when we go to sleep, our mind goes to sleep, but our consciousness is still awake. It's still active. It's still, taking care of our bodies, making sure our hearts are beating and our organs working,
Mhm.
and, we're alive. So that's, something. What if it's more than just a dream?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also processing everything that happened that day and the day before and putting everything together. And again, we're trying to sort of label everything. Was it more than just a dream? Yes. But does that really matter? If it's more than just a dream because we remember it 5 years later, okay, now do we need to put some different kind of label on it?
No.
That's our human brains wanting to do that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's where terms like STE come from.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know that we have to label it. If it somehow influences us and changes us in a good way, who cares what it's called?
I absolutely agree with you because I guess, when I speak of spiritually transformative experiences or dreams that felt like it, for me, for me, my own personal experience have always been something of love and light. So it has a resonant frequency that has always carried through with me. I don't know if I consciously labeled it or understood it in any way, shape, or form. I think that is kind of evolving and happening and like conversations like this. So
And we do keep evolving with it.
yeah, yeah.
And even the term near death experience has really evolved over the years. And for our podcast, we decided to just come up with a whole new title.
Okay.
Speaking of names for things, it's
Uh-huh.
why we called it round trip death. What the whole idea was, we're focusing on experiences, and we've gone beyond this, but the main focus is somebody dies, literally their heart stops.
Okay.
They see something on the other side, they experience something, and then they come back to talk about it. That's a round trip. That's
It
somebody that died and came back.
it is.
Now, the term near-death experience has also been really watered down with things that really should be called brush with death or something else. You know, there's constantly headlines online about so and so's near death experience. Yes, they fell off a rock, they almost got hurt, or they spun out on the freeway, but they didn't quite get in the accident and they call it a near death experience. So we have to be careful with that because a lot of people don't understand maybe what I mean by it or what somebody else means by it. And the same with, another one of the terms, out of body experience, OBE. Some people have different thoughts on what out of body means.
Yep, absolutely.
To me, it's kind of clear. It's very much like a near death experience. Somebody leaves their body, has some kind of experience in a spiritual realm, and then comes back to it.
Absolutely. I love that you're saying that, Eric, because you're so right. Even for me, as a near death experiencer, there's this internal, I don't want to call it a dialogue or a struggle, but there's this internal kind of thinking near death, meaning I came near to it, but I didn't go it, but I'm saying that I died and then I came back. So I always felt that tinge of contradiction in the words. But when you say that, and then the inspiration behind your podcast, it so resonates deeply with me because you're right. It is a round trip death. I didn't almost die. And yeah, you're right. Some people do come close to death and then they don't die and they think I had a near death experience, which is true. They had a near death experience, but not everybody has an experience to where their consciousness is completely ejected out of their body and they have a whole event and then they come back and share it as if it happened, like the way this is happening between you and I in this moment of conversation. So yeah, near death, I always feel like I near died, but then I died and people look at me like, well, did you die? You think you died. So there this whole that
The-
really like
Again, we're getting to definitions here
it is.
because some in the medical field would say if you came back, then you weren't dead because they think dead means forever. I don't think that dead means forever. I think you can die and come back.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here. Now,
Well, that's
also,
what
I have,
extinction is.
yeah, and I've also expanded our definition some because quite a few people that I've interviewed, their heart didn't actually stop, but they were in a very sick, in a deep coma for a while. And their experience in a deep coma was just the same as somebody who has had their heart stop and they've left their body.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I have heard that. Yeah, I don't like the definitions and labels either because somehow there's always room for tweaking and moving and shifting and changing, because we're all so unique. Each one of us has our own unique expression. So how we express in this world is unique, and how we experience the other side, whether through a near death or round trip death or a spiritually transformative experience, it's just as unique to the uniqueness of our life here. So that's a very interesting thing to me, at least.
Perspective.
Yeah, perspective. How do you think that your podcast is actually influencing your listeners? And which you stated, as far as it's really helping them deal with grief and their takeaway from it. How do you feel like has it had a personal transformation for you?
I wouldn't say a transformation, but it certainly has added to the the beliefs and the feelings that I already had.
Hmm.
Before we started it, I had read many books on the topic, listened and talked to a lot of people in this field, and but I keep learning and I keep loving to hear different experiences. So it's influenced me in a way of these things are real. Everybody's experience is different, and that's great. And we can all learn something from each other. Another term that comes up a lot is that we're all connected. And
Right.
I often ask people, what does that mean? Because it could mean so many different things.
Yeah.
And we are connected in so many ways, and many that I certainly don't fully understand. But, and then just the idea of love, it's almost like what we're made of,
Yeah.
right? How do you feel when you're really feeling love? Do you feel at discord with yourself or do you feel in harmony with yourself?
Absolute harmony.
And how do we spread that love?
By,
Little acts of kindness, little acts of service,
yeah.
just having gratitude in overwhelming ways.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. You know, one of the things that I understood and learned about love coming back is really, it's not that you have to find what you love and what you don't love, because that could change day by day, minute by minute. You can't just look for things you love, because there's going to be things you don't love and they still exist. For me, that translated into, if I feel like I'm in love, no matter what I do, I can do with love. And that has been, for me, the biggest takeaway and my biggest message, when it comes to like love and sharing what love is and how do you live in love, is when you feel love within your body. It doesn't matter if you're sweeping, you're doing dishes, or if you're doing whatever task. You can do that while feeling love for something else, someone else, or just being in that space.
Have you ever found that there are certain emotions that you can't have both of them at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't have
Absolutely.
fear and love. You cannot have fear and love. Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Right.
Yeah, you can. When your heart and your mind is not, um like, in cohesion, like when it's
Mhm.
not aligned, that's when you can have both, the illusion of both emotions. But really what takes over is fear, because it's really hard to love unconditionally when you're in fear, because you're no longer loving unconditionally. Your love becomes conditional, so it's really no longer love, it's condition. It's fear, it's loss.
And some emotions aren't totally in harmony or totally opposite. They're somewhere in between, like the two that you're talking about. Another thing that I have found really interesting that I did not know
Mhm.
before is when I talk to people about their life reviews.
Ah,
And we always associate a life review with, oh my gosh, it's going to be guilt and embarrassment and just, oh, it just sounds horrible. I don't want to see all these things that I did in my life, right? But life reviews for a lot of people are very, very real. It's like watching a movie speeding by of everything in their life and how all of their actions have affected other people, either positively or negatively. But without exception, people that have had these serious life review experiences say, I didn't feel guilt. I just felt love. I learned from a mistake I made and felt love at the same time. So I believe that guilt and love are opposite emotions.
Yeah.
And because they are feeling this intense love in the spirit world, they can't also be feeling guilt. Now, as getting back to the parent model,
Uh-huh.
because we're not perfect,
Mhm.
sometimes we may use a little guilt to try to get our children to do something we feel like they need to do.
Yep.
So, what can we learn from that?
Oh.
How can we parent completely out of love and not with guilt or manipulation?
Oh my God, I haven't even started to talk and I'm tearing up because it's been like that's been my life's quest. I have 3 children. So I have a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old. So different ages and different stages of development. And for me, having had a near-death experience very early on, and when I shared my story with you as far as being a mother, and feeling that kind of unconditional, intense love where I had oxytocin release before my NDE. So I was always residing in that high frequency of love. I've always tapped into that. And I naturally have always parented very differently. When I mentioned that I parented kind of like from a place of I have a miracle gift, I treated my children with miracle gifts, and that I didn't realize it consciously, but now looking back and understanding the question is how do I parent my children, with those being in those two spaces is I do not scare my children. I do not make them afraid. I do not tell them what they have to do. I always give my children options, and I try to explain to them, even when they were little, even when they were babies. I never forced them. I never overpowered them. I always gave them space to feel, and I honored their emotions, and I tried to kind of gear them into the emotion that I want them to feel from where they were. I didn't mentally rush them. And even now that they're older, the conversations that I have with each one is a little different, but they're the same in the sense that I always tell my children to be who they are and that they are wonderful. I always fill them up with love of who they are and why I see what they are. I always support why with just words and from a mother's heart. I fill them up with love. I fill them up with options, and I let them choose. And I don't make them feel bad or guilty when they make a mistake. I
You are the perfect parent.
I don't know if I'm
You have,
perfect. I am not perfect, but I
well,
incredibly amazing, compassionate, loving, kind, smart kids. I am so proud of them. And um, I just, I never parented like everybody else. I gave my kids love and space. That was my only
and that,
priority. When I came back in my mind, I came back to be a mom to them. And to me, being mom meant loving them and caring for them and making sure their needs were met. And that's what I do. And now that they're older, I let them choose what they want to do.
and that is a great philosophy. And that's something, some of that you already had, some of it you learned during your NDE.
Yes.
For the rest of us that are mere mortals and
It's
sometimes get impatient with our children
Mhm.
and have made some of these mistakes, the point of this part of the conversation is not to give anybody guilt. Zero. It's just a reminder, as best as we each personally can, let's parent with love. Let's treat all our relationships with that way. With our spouse, partner, parents, neighbors, coworkers. How can we do that with everybody?
you know, by filling ourselves with love first. We can't give what we don't have. And we have to take the time to do that, to refuel and to refill. And, this is one of those ways to refuel, is having these kind of engaging, open, curious conversations and allowing it to flow and listening to such conversations, because not every word is going to be profound. Not everything is going to be profound, but in that space, we find we find our own way and our our own paths and how we want to do, because my path is not right for everybody. It's not, you know but sitting here sharing, I just, I share mine.
Yeah. And as another example, for those that believe in Jesus,
Mhm.
his example was the same. He loved everybody. Remember, love your enemies, you know, those that hurt you, etc. And there were times that he needed to refuel where he said, I need to go off by myself for a while,
Yes.
and then I'll be back to deal with these 5,000 people.
Oh yeah.
And it's okay that we need to do that sometimes too, and refuel ourselves in whatever way that is for you. For us introverts, it's a little alone time.
Oh yeah.
For other people, it's be around a whole bunch of people, or it's reading scripture, or it's reading a good book, or it's hiking in the mountains, or swimming in the ocean, whatever it is. It's okay that we need to refuel from time to time.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't drive our cars without putting gas in there, and we're the same way. We're human. We need love. When we need time alone, we all do. And I don't think it's just empaths. I think empaths, or people, sensitive people, I consider myself, a little bit selfish on that it's kind of like when we get to the point to where it's on empty, we'll demand time alone. Like for me, I demand time alone. When I need to refuel, I take it. I do it because it makes me a better parent, makes me a better person, because
Yeah.
I'm still human. I
But
still,
everybody's different.
yeah.
Like my wife, she never needs time alone. Okay.
Super
She's
good.
much more of an extrovert, but she has learned when Eric needs some time alone, it's okay. It's nothing personal against her.
Yeah.
He can go off and go ski for a few hours and come back a whole different person, his real self again after that, some mountain therapy or whatever it is that we need to do. So find what you need to do and go do it.
Yeah. So how has how has all this impacted you, or with your children? How do you see that um, playing out in your life as a parent?
I don't know what specific examples I can give, especially since we're empty nesters now.
Oh, your kids
And
are older. I
so,
forgot.
yeah. So while you're always a parent, your job shifts drastically. And you have to remind yourself not to be too much of a parent once they're out on their own, to try to wait for them to ask for advice before you give it and things like that. But the bottom line comes back to the same thing. They may be doing something I don't agree with. I show them love, period. That's all that matters. Okay. I don't care what they're doing. I want to have a loving relationship with them and with their kids. So that's something that I try to get better at all the time, and that these interviews and these stories have helped me with.
Do you think it's impacted your grown children and how they parent their kids compared to, I don't know, other people in your community, or do you know?
I sure hope so. I've always told them, you can be a better parent than I was. You know, take the good from your mom and I, and then go add to it and be better. we were far from perfect. You can do even better. And you won't be perfect, but hopefully your kids will be even better than you.
You know, it was one of, it is the evolution of who we are, right? We are an evolution of our parents and ancestors, and they are a continuation of us, your kids, grandkids, great grandkids. Yeah. And it does affect before and after, definitely. So
Well, and if you don't mind my interjecting,
yeah.
there are also scientific studies now proving that things are passed down in the DNA,
Oh,
not just eye color, hair color, but experiences that ancestors have had. Some of that is passed down. Have you read any of those? I saw one recently.
oh,
Okay.
that's so
This was
interesting.
done, and
Yeah.
I can't quote it exactly, but this was an experiment done on mice.
Mm,
So they they took these mice, they exposed them to, when you hear this noise, you're going to get a little shock.
mm-hmm,
So they heard this horn, they got this shock. It was a horribly negative experience. Okay.
mm,
Now they had the semen from those mice impregnated mice that had not had this experience.
okay.
Okay. Their children, when they were exposed to that noise, went like this because they thought they were going to get some kind of negative experience happen to them. So that had actually been passed down genetically, not socially.
Wow. I have.
I don't know how much of that happens, but I know there is some of that.
Absolutely. So may I share with you what I know about that? I actually heard, uh, I heard something very similar to that. So it is what you heard. I have heard it as well. Um, so, I do bioacoustics, right? Which is the study of the wave patterns of the voice. And in what I do, what I'm able to do is I'm looking at the sound of your voice. And if I look at the architecture of your voice, I can literally look to see how your parents' emotional state affected you. It's literally in your vocal prints, how every moment of your existence before and after, and even in vitro, shows up in your voice prints as things that happened to you in those moments in your life. It carries on with us. It carries on from this generation. What's missing in our parents' vocals are often missing in ours. It's incredible the amount of information we can get about ourselves and our ancestors and everybody from different ways of measurement. I mean, I'm just talking about voice, but yeah, like you said, there's different ways that has been tested and measured, and I'm familiar with the voice, and I think it's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
It also reminds me there's so much we don't know.
Right.
Science is so far from having all the answers for us.
Yeah, but this is a great start to have these kind of moments and conversations, and I want to, thank you for being here. And I, before we close up here, I just want to give you a moment to share anything memorable or anything that you want to share about your podcast, your vision, your dreams, and anything you want to share with us about Eric Bennett and your podcast.
Some of the things that stand out to me the most, again, are people's explanation of the love that they feel in the spirit world when they are out of their body. And let me see if I can remember a couple of those. One of my favorites is, it felt like a hug from 1,000 grandmothers all at the same time. Okay. Um, I'm sorry, that's the only one that's coming to my mind right now. So that must be the most important one. But but the idea is, think about something that really puts a smile on your face. It may be a hug from your 2-year-old child who
Yes.
just looks at you so innocently and trusts you so completely and puts their arms around you and gives you a kiss, times it by a million. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that. And the fact that we do not need to fear death is a big, big deal. We can live our lives a whole different way if we don't have a fear of death. If we know that it's just like stepping through a door, it's easy and there's something better on the other side. This world's a tough place. It's a wonderful place too,
It is.
but it's a tough place.
It is.
And things are amazing on the other side. And we're with loved ones and we can have the kind of experience that we want.
Yeah.
It's not a guilt-riddled fire and brimstone kind of place. It's a wonderful, beautiful place that's hard to even express here. In fact, that's one other thing. I love people that can remember what they saw well enough to try to explain what things looked like. And I had an artist on the show say, I saw colors that I can't explain. I said, well, why don't you just paint me a painting, right? Of what you saw. He said, I can't. There aren't the colors on my palette. I can't mix colors in this world that look like everything from that world. And that gets my imagination just going fast and furious. And it's so cool to think just how beautiful it's going to be, in addition to the wonderful feelings that we're going to have. So, there's a great message of hope to leave with everybody today.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. And I just want to say, as you were saying that, as you were, oh, I was finding myself in my experiences. And you know, that beauty that you described, those colors that you described, I saw it here on earth. I saw it from the view on top of a mountain, and I saw flocks of birds and colors and beauty. And when you say that you can't explain it, when I look at it, it's almost like it just, there's no words that can be put to it. Yes, it does exist, and it also exists here. It also exists for us here. We can see it when we're in a state of love. And we don't have to have a near-death experience or die to feel love and to see love. So,
And to share love.
and to share love. Yes.
I like this. I'm going to do this more often. You don't even realize how often you do it. I love it.
I don't. Sometimes, okay, now I'm going to be self-conscious, but yes.
No, it's a good thing. Don't be self-conscious about it. It's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for being my guest. I really enjoyed my time on your podcast, having the opportunity to share my story, my experience, and I'm so happy that we got a chance to connect here today and just talk and get to know a little bit about you and your podcast and why you do it. And I'm grateful that you're doing it, because it gives me space, people like me, and it gives also people who are interested a place and a platform to come and listen. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And your children are very lucky to have you for their mother.
Thank you. And likewise, your children and your grandchildren are lucky to have you, your wife.
Did you say my guilt grandchildren?
I did. That
A
was you're pretty good. You got it fast. Yeah.
little Freudian slip there. I get it.
Children. Yeah. Sometimes get mumbled.
All right. Thanks, Leena.
You have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until the next time. Have a blessed day. Thank you.